All right, Dusty. I guess now you've had a little bit of time to reflect back on the season. Before we talk about the season, though, I'm curious. What does a manager do in the middle of the off season? You're a little bit removed from last year and still removed from this coming season as well. So, how do you occupy your time right now?
Well, hey, man, occupying my time is not an issue ever. Trust me. And, I'm hitting every day with my son. He's working out because he's taking all his classes online. So school's not in at Berkeley. And, that's been kind of a blessing, even though, he hadn't complained. I know he wants to get back to school. And, I have a couple things going. I have Baker Family Wines, which I go to most Saturdays. But as of today, they shut down, California, a lot of the restaurants and all the bars and just gatherings. And so I'm spending most of my time at my office at Baker Energy Team trying to, get catch up, to get behind again next year. And because I kind of put it on hold, during the season, I was still doing some things, but, my number one, interest was baseball. But now that I'm back home, like I'm spending, probably 4 or 5 hours a night a day in my office. I haven't started hunting or fishing yet because it's bluebird weather. It's cold, but feels like early fall, and here it is, should be, December. So it's a strange vibe, that we have going on here. I don't know how it is back there, but it's just different.
Yeah, things are a little bit different here in Texas, and you are obviously a man of many talents and many interests, but I want to go back in time a little bit, and I'm always curious to ask guys who have retired, and how it works in different eras. As a player, what were your off seasons like? Because now everybody's working out from day one in the off season, but what was it like for Dusty Baker as a player during the off season?
Well, I'll tell you, in the late 60s and probably into the mid 70s, my off season was working out in the evening, but you had to work. That $18,000 one year to $21,000 the next year and $45,000. The next year, we all had to work in the off season, and we all had mouths to feed, like Chris talks about, and I did have mouths to feed, and so. One winter I sold cars. I sold the cars down in Augusta. Excuse me. I worked for Walker Ford, and then the next couple winters I worked for Atlanta Life. I sold insurance, and I always worked. And I remember one year when I got to LA, I was a broker in '87, and so. But once I got into making pretty good money, probably in the late 70s through the mid 80s, then I it was about taking care of your body and working out, much like the players do now.
Hey, Dusty, obviously last few months it's been tough because we've lost some great ones: Lou Brock, Joe Morgan, Tom Seaver, Bob Gibson, and then you go back, Jimmy Wynn and Bob Watson, a few months ago, very close here to home. Dick Allen this past week. You think back about that. I was reading about the stories, and that's why I love talking with some of the players that were able to play in that era. Some of the stories that you might have about some of those guys. But Bob Gibson, I know the story that Hank Aaron gave you some advice about facing Bob Gibson for the first time. First of all, I want to ask you before you tell me the story: was it true that you've only been intimidated by two people, I should say, your dad and Bob Gibson?
Well, that's true. And, I was just thinking last night, I've lost, 16 to 18 players, friends of mine. It was a tough situation, to lose those guys. Just thinking, what Dick had meant to me, and, because I spent some time with Dick Allen, like we all spent time together. And how Dick, used to hold out every year on his contract in his spring training. And I was trying to copy Dick, in my first couple of years, because I held out in spring training. And, he was a guy that, that also helped me, in my hitting, I mean, one day he asked me, did I play basketball? And that was kind of an insult to ask me, did I play basketball? And like, heck yeah, I played basketball. He said, well, you don't look like it. He says, you're not pivoting. He says, your waist not on the balls of your feet. And, he got me hot again. But I think, his brother Hank, was sick. We were all worried about Hank, who had a couple of heart bypasses. And then now Dick passes and, passed before he could make it to the Hall of Fame. Because that's, I wish, that the Hall of Fame committee would put guys in prior to them passing. And, the same with Ron Santo, from before. So, I was just thinking of some of my teammates that have passed this year, like, lesser, the guys, not Hall of Famers, but, great guys like Jay Johnstone and, Claudell Washington. And then, the list goes on and on. You think about, Lou Johnson, as well as guys you mentioned, Bob Watson and the Toy Cannon and Seaver and Al Kaline early in the year. And you just think about, some of the guys and what they meant, to you. And but I kind of knew the year was going to be a little tough on possible deaths because, all these great players. And as you get older, I was one of the younger guys, but now I'm 70. So those guys are anywhere between 78 to 90 something, 90 something, years old. And so I just hope that these guys could, stick around a little longer. If not, then, there's some greats in heaven right now.
What was the advice? I know Henry Aaron gave you a lot of advice, but facing Gibson, don't look at him, don't talk to him, and if you happen to hit a home run, don't run too fast. What did he say?
Yeah, well, I mean, he told me, he goes, hey, he don't like you butting on him. I said, okay, hey. He said, well, he don't like you hitting the ball back through the middle on him either. I said, okay. And he says, if you get on first base, he don't like you stealing off of him. I said, okay. And then he says, if you haven't hit a home run, don't be smiling going around the bases. No, first he told me don't dig in. And then he told me, if you haven't hit a home run, he said, don't run too fast, don't run too slow. And if you have to laugh and celebrate, you go up in the tunnel. And one final thought, don't, if he happens to hit you, don't charge the mound because he's a Golden Gloves boxer. He'll embarrass you. So I was like, well, heck, what can I do? And I had a 17-game hitting streak my rookie year, and ended that night when I faced Bob Gibson.
We'll get into what you mean to the team currently, but I think it's kind of special for Esh and I to speak with you because you have played with so many legends and so many different personalities throughout the course of the game. You mentioned the Toy Cannon, Jimmy Wynn, and what he meant, and how electric he was at his size. One of the things that kind of surprised me about Dick Allen is that, all the stories I heard was how hard he played, how aggressive he was, and then he swung a 40-ounce bat.
Yes,
and
he
then
did.
And then I realized he wasn't a massive human being. He was one of those guys that needed to use his athleticism to succeed in baseball, but he did it great.
Well, but he had big old arms. This is what people don't understand. I mean, he had huge arms, and he was kind of, he used to hide them. Most guys, you see Ted Kaczewski and you see some of the, big arm guys, that are in the game now, they show off their guns. But, Dick wore long sleeves every day. He wore long sleeves because, he was conscious of it. And his bat was one of the bats that you would swing on the on-deck circle as your heavy bat. Like the guys like Felipe Alou used a huge bat. Bob Watson used to use, Orlando Cepeda, he used a huge bat. And Dick used, I think, a P89, like 36-42 or something like that. And, they say you couldn't wrap the bat around your head, but he started it early. And you can do anything as long as you're in the launch position at the right time. And I remember, reading stories about Dick Allen, about how, he was such a great base runner. And, that's something that you can be taught, but basically it's kind of an instinctive thing. And I got in trouble when I was a kid. I read an article about Dick Allen that used to go around and knock the bulbs, after the petals fell off around around his fence that held his horses, because he loved horses. And so he said he held out in spring training, and that's how he got his timing, and that's how he learned where the bat head was. And so I was like, man, I'm gonna try that. So I went out in my mom's rose garden, and I got in serious trouble because I had rose petals everywhere, and so
that's outstanding.
So my mom goes, "Boy, have you lost your mind?" I said, "No, Mom." I said, I read an article about Dick Allen. That's what he did." And she goes, "You are not Dick Allen. You're Dusty Baker. You wait till your dad gets home." So I needless to say, I've never done that again, but I try to have my son do it at home, because I raise roses, and but I was trying to wait till all the petals fell off. So I'm gonna go home tonight and ask him to work on his back control and just knock the bulbs off the top of the rose.
That is gold right there. Hey, Dusty, what do you remember? I'm so thankful that I was old enough to remember the end of the careers of guys like Aaron. I didn't see Mantle play and people like that, but I did get to see Hank Aaron and Roberto Clemente and guys like that at the very ends of their careers. Willie Mays even. What do you remember about the night that Henry Aaron hit 715?
Well, I remember it was a cold night. It was very cold, and his wife, Barbara's in the stands, his kids, his mom, everybody. No. I mean, at that time, Hank was already divorced, and so I remember his kids were there, his mom was there, and it was cold. And Hank told me that he was going to get it over with right then. I was on deck circle, and I never doubted him anything that he said. I said, "Okay, man, I guess." You said, he's predicted to me probably 15 or 20 times. He was really schooling me about, okay, he's going to throw me a slider away, and then he's going to follow with the fastball, then go back to the slider. And I didn't know he was schooling me at the time, and he told me that Al was going to throw him something on the outside, and he was going to hit it over the left field fence. And he did. And he ran around the bases. And then, I didn't want to go. I could have been the first one at the plate, but I didn't want to go up there because that was Hank's moment, So I kind of waited back, and then they had a ceremony, and then everybody started leaving. And I remember that I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm about to hit you guys. You don't want to see me hit?" And all I heard was clank, 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 those seats, and everybody was leaving. And it was a great moment. I mean, it was a relief to him because, boy, that was a tough time for him.
Yeah, an amazing feat. It was great that he was able to do that. And you had a chance to manage a guy who eventually broke his record in Barry Bonds. Were there any similarities between the two of them as far as their approach or hitting, or did you anticipate Barry Bonds being able to break Hank Aaron's home run record?
Well, not really, but I tell you, that nowadays they say that, you go downhill at 32, 33 years old, but you see Barry and Hank and Mays and a lot of these greats, they actually put up some of their best numbers between 32 and 36, depends, and 37, even 40, depends on how body type, if they lose desire to play, or if they gain weight and lose the rotation on the fastball. But the thing that the similarities between them is that they have outstanding vision. Both of them have great vision. They knew what was coming almost all the time. They had great concentration. You couldn't lull them to sleep. I mean, I remember one time we were playing the Cardinals, and Lynn McLaughlin, bless his soul, Bob Gibson had told him, I found out later, to don't throw Hank Aaron a fastball. It's like trying to sneak the sun up past the rooster in the morning. And so he threw him sliders all day, and he threw him one fastball, and he hit it over the fence. And that was the same thing with Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds would get one, maybe two pitches to hit a night, but you couldn't lull him to sleep. He was always alert. He was always he knew he could hit. And the one thing that both of them did, they recognized fear in the opposition. And that's something that, most guys don't don't recognize, when you recognize that a guy's afraid of you, then he's not going to come at you and he's not going to do certain things to you. So, that was the thing. I mean, they had like tremendous vision and concentration.
Hey, one more question during this segment, because Art Howe
Yep.
told me one time, it took him about a millisecond to answer this question. He said when Barry Bonds was good, when he was on, he was without question the toughest out he ever saw in baseball.
Yes.
Would you go with that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, because he had no weakness. I mean, when he first came up, he had some weaknesses, but he closed those holes and he closed those weaknesses. And oh yeah, I mean, this guy, I think people forget he had like 373 and had like 200 walks. I mean, I don't know how many home runs he hit that year, but I mean, it was almost nightly that you just knew he was going to hit a home run. It was just a matter of how many home runs he was going to hit that night. And he was a very tough out. But like he was a student of the game. He came up, at a young age, hanging around his dad and his godfather's Willie Mays, and you can't do much better than that. And he was like one of the child actors that you see. Michael Douglas or one of the Sutherlands or one of the kids, that aren't intimidated or even in awe of being on the set or being on the, at the big league ballpark. I mean, they felt at home from the minute, that they got there. And I think that's a big part of playing in the big leagues is feeling that you belong in the big leagues, because it takes some players a couple of years to really realize where they are or actually feel comfortable in their own skin where they are.
All right, time for a quick break. We should call this Story Time with Uncle Dusty. This is Astroline. We've got more to come from Plucker's Wing Bar after this.
Welcome back to Astroline. We are here at Plucker's having a great time. And of course, we have got the Astros manager, Dusty Baker, online with us. And we are going to continue to talk a little bit about some of his experience in baseball and maybe touch on a little bit of how this season went. And that's probably what I'm most curious about, Dusty, is just we already kind of hinted at the uniqueness of the 2020 season throughout the course of the season being isolated, but the way you guys finished was truly amazing. Could you give the fans at home an idea of what really clicked for your team when they got to the playoffs? Because it kind of limped in and then obviously turned it on when it really counted.
Well, the long reason why we limped in is because we were trying to get our bullpen together. I think we had 8 to 10 blown saves in the 8th and 9th inning. That's quite a bit in a 60-game season. And, guys are still trying to learn how to be in the bullpen and how to warm up in the bullpen. And you give us half of those games, that we blew. I mean, heck, we'd have been knocking on 40 games, because, one of the biggest downers in baseball, in sports is a blown save. And so, our record looked like we limped in, but basically, like we were a lot better than we played. I think we were built for the playoffs. And I remember Jose Altuve and different players telling me, "Hey man, you just wait till we get to the playoffs. That's going to be fun." And hey man, I don't know how they turned it on, but they believed it. Half of it is believing it. The fact that hey, if we get there, we're going to be a force. And they never stopped believing, even when we got behind 3-0 to Tampa Bay. I mean, they and we and everybody thought that, hey man, we're going to come back. And then you win game 1. It's like, okay, I told you. And then game 2, and then game 3, and we just get a hit or two, along the way. We'd have been back in this series again. But I was proud of them on how they responded. Proud of all the young guys that have never been in that pressure cooker, have never been down the stretch there, and the veterans for leading them and showing them how to do it and showing them the way.
Given all of the challenges that everybody had to go through in 2020 during the baseball season, what were some of the biggest challenges that people may not know about, the things that you had to deal with on a daily basis? Not just you, but everybody in a traveling party.
Well, when you couldn't, only have 3 guys in the lunchroom at a time, only have 4 guys in the weight room at a time, only have, 4 or 5 guys in the training room at a time. Those are some of the biggest challenges, because that's when the team really comes together, is not on the field, but, you know, off the field. Or the guys couldn't play cards on a long road trip. And we had some long ones. You go from Houston to Seattle, and guys have to stay in their seats, and you can't go talk to guys. Or I remember Michael Brantley telling me, he said, hey man, he's used to his routine. Everybody gets in a routine. And his routine was to get up in the morning, go to Starbucks, get coffee, and then come back. And, you know, he couldn't go to Starbucks, or guys couldn't see their relatives, or, you know, the isolation of just going from the ballpark. It was tougher on the road, which I think was indicative of our road record versus at home. At home, you could go get, you know, food that you like. You know, you could, you know, you're being with your family and your kids. But when you're on the road, man, I mean, it's you know, I got in trouble one time for bringing in food, you know, to the Latin guys. And, you know, they wanted some arroz con pollo. So I went and got them some arroz con pollo. Well, they were used to eating hummus and couscous and stuff like that. And so, you know, I got in trouble, and we had to discard it. And, you know, I mean, that hurt me right there. And then they asked me, you want your money back? I said, no, these guys want the food back. So, you know, that was probably the hardest part for me, because for years I eat at my desk, and I go get my own food. I get what I like to eat. How nutritious it is, I wasn't sure, but I like what I like. And, you know, that was some of the, you know, some of the hard parts of, and, you know, you couldn't celebrate in the dugout, but, you know, a lot of this was necessary, or else we couldn't have made it the way we did. And quite honestly, I don't know how we made it, you know, without more guys not getting sick. And, you know, and I'm looking at NFL, and I'm looking at college football, and, you know, I think basketball and baseball, you know, probably did it the best, but we don't have the same contact that they have in football or basketball as a sport.
Yeah, a little bit different. And this being a virtual Astroline that we are doing from Pluckers, and having the great Dusty Baker, the manager of the Astros, on with us, we actually have some questions from outside that people have been emailing in or tweeting in. And we've got one from A@E.HDZ4. And obviously, I know, it got me right there. 2020 has been a tough year. What was your favorite memory from this past season, Dusty?
Probably after we beat Minnesota. Yeah, you know, that was probably because, you know, the last few teams I had been on, we had trouble getting out of the first round, and that's always on your mind. And you know, that was my favorite, because I thought Minnesota, you know, had a heck of a team, and then Oakland, you know, they said they wanted us, and they got us. And you know, that was right after Minnesota, beating Minnesota, and then, you know, to beat Oakland, especially out here in California.
Is what you learned about this team maybe the thing that you didn't know before? There's that it factor of there's some teams that just have it's a combination of players that you don't know what it is, but you know it when you see it, and that it is ability to win big games.
You know, it's it if you don't have it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't really, it's hard to explain what the it is, because everybody has to have it in order to, you know, to win. And you know, it's that inner desire of never quitting, and always having that eternal hope on the inside, that, you know, I really remember that famous game between Boston and the Yankees, you know, when Aaron Boone was like sitting in the dugout with Derek Jeter, and Derek Jeter said the ghost will come, and he came. But see, I mean, our ghost didn't. I don't really believe in ghosts. I don't disbelieve, but at the same time, you know, you got to believe that some kind of way, you know, you will be rescued in some kind of way. You know, you're going to win, and this is what this team has. I mean, this team has been through some tough times before I got here. You know, they were losing 100 games like 2 or 3 years in a row, and then they won 100 games 2 or 3 years in a row. So, or 3 years in a row. So I think next year is going to be, a very interesting year. There's some guys that still have some things to.
There he is. He's connecting.
Look at you getting back on.
Yeah.
Hello, guys. Hey, guys.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank
Hey,
you.
I got you on my phone this time.
All right, well, that's fine.
That's very kind of you to get back on, Dusty.
Thank you, man. That was great.
Yeah, no, that just shows you how bad I am with
Oh,
this.
come on.
You're not the only one, man.
No,
Trust
but
me.
see, listen. My son and my wife are not here to bail me out. I'm in the office by myself.
Yeah. I seriously think that's why I've got 4 kids, so they can help me out with the electronics too, man. Trust me.
Exactly
Are you
right.
serious? Yeah. Okay, so I'm not the only one.
Oh, man. Are you kidding me? Yeah.
Actually, you're one of everyone. That's
Especially our generation. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I can't keep up with this stuff, man.
Okay, can you guys see me now?
Yeah,
yeah.
you look great. You look great.
Okay. All right, sweet then. All right.
yeah. Hey, Blummer, just go ahead and start it off with we got enough of that last answer talking about the it factor, and you want to go from there?
Yeah. Okay. So on this, so we were talking about the it factor and some of these guys, and you have a great ball club that has some different kinds of leaders on that. Can you talk a little bit about, maybe the way an Altuve leads or an Alex Bregman, or even as Zach Greinke's kind of moved into that veteran leadership role too?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, like you look at Altuve, I mean, he's one of the spiritual leaders, and, he leads by example. And not only that, when he speaks, people listen, and, when you come to a new club, you're always trying to figure out the role of each guy. I think that, Carlos Correa, is emerging as one of the leaders and one of the vocal leaders that's not afraid to, to say what's on his mind. And you look at Alex. Alex is as strong as anybody there, mentally and spiritually, where he states his mind too, and he really don't care if you agree with them or not. If you ask him a question, he's going to tell you. And then you look at Yuli. He's a very quiet leader, but they all look to Yuli, for advice. And you look at Greinke. I mean, Greinke does this thing, but like you follow Greinke, and whether he says let's go or not, it was a pleasure being around Greinke. He's a little different, but hey, that's what makes the world go around. You got to have different people in different ways on a team.
You talked about Zach Greinke a little bit and his leadership and being able to work with him and how much you enjoyed it. And it kind of made me think about how you've seen baseball evolve over generations, over decades. And it struck me that you were one of the few managers in the game right now that will actually extend a guy's outing. You showed faith in Framber Valdez. You showed faith in Zach Greinke. And then we watched the World Series and Blake Snell gets taken out after 2 times through the order. I just wanted to hear a little bit about your managerial style or idea on how to handle pitching. And do you like the idea of taking out a guy like Blake Snell in that situation?
Well, I mean, each manager has to do what he has to do. I'm not going to second guess what they did over there or what I would do. There's no guarantee that no matter what you do is going to work. You understand?
You've had a lot of success, though. So I'd give you credit for doing a lot of things right.
But I took Russ Ortiz out after 6, and I thought that that he was through because he was getting blasted pretty good, and then they came back and beat us, and then people were like, hey, why'd you take him out? And then, okay, if you don't take him out, why'd you leave him so long? And see, the thing about being a manager is that you're at the mercy of how the players produce. If they fail, then you were the failure, and if they succeed, then they were the successor. So the success was in their court. So, a lot of times the manager, you just have to eat whatever the results are because it's up to the players. And me as a manager, like I've always used numbers. I've always used left-right matchups. I've always used first batter efficiency out of the bullpen or who's good at getting the first batter out, or who's terrible at it. His ERA is 0.86, but he's given up everybody else's runs. You know what I mean? So, these are things that you have to weigh. A lot of times, you're stuck at the fact that, okay, what do I do? And sometimes you just hope. You hope and you pray. And like I did with Greinke, I was hoping he'd get out of there, get out of that inning, because sometimes you have to say, who else do I have that's better at getting out of this situation and better at getting out of trouble than Zach? Like, who's been in trouble the most that I have out there? I mean, the guy has 220 something victories, and you can't tell me that he wasn't in trouble at some point in time with bases loaded. And you have to sometimes like my dad told me, when I got caught up in that tree for about the third time, he told me, you got to find your own way down sometime. And if you don't let them find their own way out of that tree, then they'll never learn how to get out of the situation with bases loaded. And I mean, you make one pitch, boom, you pop a guy up, it's a double play. Well, you've just created a pitcher that knows how to pitch and not worried about being rescued. And so it's all part of the maturation process of each hitter. Just like sometimes you don't pinch hit for a guy, this guy might not get a hit or doesn't have a good chance getting hit, but if he happens to get a hit, now you got a player that's building on confidence. And I'm big on showing confidence, in my players, because there are some managers, particularly Tom Lasorda, that showed confidence in me and helped change my, career around when I was going downhill. I came in the league, third in the league in hitting, and I thought it was going to be easy. And then I started going down. I hit rock bottom and had to climb my way back up. And so, I try to use a combination of knowing the personnel, some things that happened in my background, some things that other coaches have done to me. And there are a lot of coaches that have done things for me, but there've been some other coaches that taught me how not to be, which is as important as how to be.
Was that one of the big challenges with this season, though, is knowing that you have those different factions? You've got a Zach Greinke that's been there and done that, and you manage him a certain way or handle him a certain way, whereas it may be an Anoli Paredes who you want to build that confidence, but at the same time, you got to win baseball games in certain situations, or Christian Javier, whoever the case may be.
That's a good question. I mean, and that was really tough in the 60-game season. I mean, how much time do you have to maybe lose a game while you're trying to build a confidence? And also the challenges were, for me, is that I didn't know these guys. I was just about to get to know them in spring training in that month. But it takes a lifetime sometime to learn about people. I mean, people will surprise you, and then we're off for a month, and then we came back for 2 weeks, and then is that enough time to get to really know somebody? Is that enough time a guy, just because the guy's quiet, that doesn't mean that he's not confident. And another guy who's boisterous and the loudest guy in the room, that doesn't mean that he's confident. So it's like that was the challenging part, for me as a manager, to try to win ball games, but try to learn your personnel so that you could put them in a position where they were most likely succeed.
Yeah, there was definitely challenges throughout the course of the season that you had to deal with. And I've actually got another question from the outside. And this is @_Billy 2.0. I practiced that while you guys were talking, so I get that right. But in all of your years as a manager, what has been the most difficult obstacle to overcome?
Probably well, personally, the fact that being an African American manager, you rarely get credit for being intelligent person or being intelligent part of the game, where people are like, oh yeah, you're not a strategist, you're not this, you're not that, and not to listen to, to other people. Because, when I look back at my record, I must have been something, because I've heard all the things that I'm not, but yet still, I've beaten most of the teams, or, not, I don't want to start saying what I've done. I mean, what I've done. So I've kind of relished that role since it was given to me. You can say whatever you want to say, and at the end of the day, my teams will probably win, no matter who we have on the team.
Hey, we know you're a good manager. We also know that you're a great storyteller. And I'm telling you, man, I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed this conversation with you. We wanted so much to sit down and talk. If I'm ever in Northern California, man, I want to just come to your house and hang out and listen.
Could you imagine sitting down with Dusty Baker and a bottle of wine?
Oh my gosh.
My goodness, that was what I was looking for until this whole COVID thing hit, Dusty. Because I grew up as an 80s kid in LA watching you play with all those guys. And I mean, I'm going to wear you out when I get near you.
That's cool, man. Hey, brother. I'm just hoping that we can get the, we can go, have a drink, or we can go have I don't know, a whole bottle of wine anymore, but I can have a glass, and I can have a glass of scotch,
That's all I'm asking. That'd be great.
Oh, yeah, like John Lee Hooker says, 1 bourbon, 1 scotch, and 1 beer. So that's about my limit now,
I'll bring the bourbon. All right. Hey, how's the wine business going?
It's going pretty good, man. I mean, we, Hank Aaron joined my company. We have a Hank Aaron 755 cab that he wanted, a bold cab, and it's going pretty good, except today they shut down all the restaurants and bars, and it's only for takeout now. So it's been challenging, but you got to make the most of your time. So we spent a lot of our time, doing bottling from last year, and so you just got to find the rainbow, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, no matter what it is. So we've been challenged out here, especially in Napa. A lot of the fires.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, destroyed a lot of grapes. Ours weren't necessarily tainted by smoke. A lot of them, that didn't burn. They got smoke taste. So it's we won't know the effects of this until probably a few years down the line.
Oh, I'm good. You good?
I'm elated to have him on and have this great interview. So yeah, I'm good. I'll be more than happy to let Dusty get back to his world.
Hey, Dusty,
I ain't in a hurry to get back to work. I'll just say that right now. All right, guys. I'll see you soon. Okay.
Yeah, appreciate you, Dusty. Be good. Tell Darren I said hello and go Bears.